Hello and welcome back, and that's right, today we want to compare a couple of NASs. Today we are going to talk about the brand new DS723 Plus, which is a weird graphic here because I don't actually have one, unfortunately, here in the studio right now. And Eddie, what are we comparing it against?
720 Plus.
Oh, well, he says he likes it way too much, that little NAS, number of things that thing's done around his house. And today we're going to talk about which one best deserves your data. Now, you could be in a multitude of different setups. Number one, you might be on the fence thinking about buying it, maybe an old Black Friday sale, maybe a regular sale, and you've seen that this old device is on sale, and I keep saying the word old and pointing at it aggressively, or you have thought about buying the new device because you're thinking about a bit of future proofing, or perhaps you are an existing 720 buyer and, much like yourself, you are like, I don't know whether to make the upgrade or not. Maybe you've bought some older units as well. So hopefully today's video will help you understand and decide which one of these two NASs best deserves your data. So, before we go any further, Eddie, what do you think of the 720 as a NAS on its own? Before we go any further.
It's a beautiful NAS. It's probably the best NAS they had so far.
Man alive.
Really beautiful. It's going to be so sad to not upgrade it to a next level.
Wow.
Keep it for another
Shots
2
fired
years.
very early doors in today's video. Man alive. Draw the lines down, why don't you? Okay, so we are going to start things, of course, with probably one of the most tenuous, but arguably for some, the most important factor between choosing these NAS is the price. Eddie, what's the going rate for your NAS right now, recording in November 2022?
That's around £350 to say it's 400, something like that. In American dollars, the same, $400, $450.
Okay.
It's a beautiful price now. It's like a really bargain,
Wow.
really good
Man
time
alive.
to get one of these because they are going away.
Welcome to
sell it.
Welcome to QVC, everyone. Okay, so for a 2-bay, that is quite pricey, but for the hardware you're getting there, that's, we'll talk about value later on. The new generation device, the DS723 Plus, unfortunately, I can't be as clear-cut on that pricing for two reasons. One, it's only just been kind of formally available, or even informally available in some regions. You're looking at around £400 to £450 in dollars, about, again, $450, you're getting closer to the 500 mark there. Again, you've got to factor in your tax, you've got to factor in your delivery. But the big problem pricing-wise for the 723 is, of course, it's very, very new. So new products are obviously a lot closer to their RRP, recommended retail price. But on top of that, availability. It's not available everywhere. So pricing-wise, it has to be factored in a lot of smaller stocks that are out there, and some regions having to kind of ship in from other ones. So I think it, as much as it pains me to say it in any comparison, very early doors, I'm not going to win this first round with regards to price. I think.
Yeah, exactly. With old models, they're always going to be discounted a price, so it's like really short amount of time available to you to get one of these. I
think right now, okay, so moving away from price ever so slightly, and dare I say very, very quickly, we can talk about value, because let's be realistic about this. It's not about how much you pay, it's about what you're getting for your money. So let's talk about the hardware. Predominantly, we're going to talk about the inside. We're not going to focus too much on things like bays, because they're both 2 bays. Again, I know you can see a graphic and I can't, but they're both 2-bay NASs. They're both SATA 2-bay NASs. They both could support vaguely the same sort of drives, although of course there are question marks around fully supported compatibility there. They both can be expanded with the DS517 5-bay expansion device. Add another 5 drives there on the side. There's not really much difference there, even in terms of driver compatibility. But when it comes to CPU and memory, of course, the building blocks of these systems, I think we have to agree that there is a markedly different direction these brands have gone. Eddie, 720 Plus, talk to me about CPU and memory.
That has a Celeron J4125.
Cool.
Which can burst up to 2.7 gigahertz, which is quite good.
Okay.
But if you don't, it's going to run at 2 gigahertz a second.
2.7, wow.
So you can save some energy. That's
7.
like that. It has embedded graphics in the CPU, so if you have to transcode something, access those videos remotely, or if your TV can't play certain 4K videos, it's going to change
like
those
HTVC,
videos,
blah, blah, blah.
so you can actually watch them. And it's 4K compatible, 1080p, whatever you want. Beautiful.
Okay. And memory?
Memory was what was it, 4 gigs or 2 gigs? I think 2 gigs. I think you can upgrade it to 4 gigs DDR4. So
it was 2, and I think you can upgrade it to 6 gig. It's 2666 megahertz memory. Don't get me wrong, I'm going to smash all this in a moment. It's a real shame.
Basically, that hardware is all you need for basically now, and it could actually potentially last for another 5 to 10 years.
They do hold their power. I will give you that. When the 2020 series arrived, there were question marks about certain connectivity at launch, but when it came to the internal hardware, I couldn't really fault it, notwithstanding that faster memory, frequency memory at 2666. that CPU at the time was a goodie, and again, keyword was. And that quad-core, the graphical embedded stuff there, we've been revisiting the subject of that CPU last month with 4K performance on the 920. And again, we saw it do tremendously well at native 4K and with HEVC. It was only when you get above about 60 megabits per second did I see any kind of failings with regard to 4K and HEVC playback. However, let's get powerful. Thanks for coming and bearing with that. Of course, what we've got inside the 723 is a dual core. It's a dual core embedded Ryzen, the R1600. 2 cores, 4 threads, 2.6 gigahertz base frequency there. That can be upgraded to 3.1 gigahertz when it's needed internally. It can burst and clock up to that on that processor. Also, with regards to memory, again, there are question marks about the memory on there, but between 2 and 4 gig by default on the memory on that device, and that can be upgraded, at least on the CPU stakes, up to 32 gig supported there. But of course, the configuration of the device does change that. And again, with mixed PDFs that we're seeing flying around, hopefully the information's there on screen. But this is still ECC error correcting code memory. This is an upgrade in terms of power. It's an upgrade in terms of proficiency there and how much you can do any simultaneous time. Those extra threads there, doing the balancing point there. Again, with things like the price of Intel Celeron processors at the moment, with the availability of Intel Celeron processors at the moment, and that this CPU, compared to that one, opens up the door to PCIe Gen 3 lanes on the PCI lanes internally, means a better bandwidth to all of the individual components there inside. So everything about it, even the M2 NVMe slots that we've talked about, and again, I should really have referred to that, there are M2 NVMe's on these that can be used for caching. The M2 NVMe's here are going to be running on Gen 3 lanes. You're going to get more out of those lanes than you would on your 720 there. Don't get me wrong, I am a little jealous of that integrated graphics. Let's be honest, there are times when integrated graphics are useful. But you know what is useful? Power. And I like having a much more proficient, powerful CPU in most other ways, and the fact that I can run DS720 and its multifaceted applications for the most part, for the multimedia in some ways, much better with all that extra horsepower for me, does tick a lot of boxes, and it does make it a worthy upgrade in many, many ways. Would you not agree to at least some of the things I've
Not
said?
at all, because
wow.
Because if I would both of these NASs, if I would put in connect in my home network, they would both, well, not both actually. My old NAS would perform better. If I would not upgrade your one, connect everything side by side as they come out of the box, connect LAN cables. The data transfer speed, if you copy your files to a NAS or from, exactly the same, capped at 1 gigabit per second. If you want to watch some videos, your one is going to be struggling and screaming there. If I'm
only if it's particularly dense or certain format media.
If I try to access those videos when I'm out and about and I want to watch those videos, your one is going to be screaming there in the corner. Even though your hardware is so good, but it does no good in my setup. If I would plug it in, my old NAS would work better, even though on the paper specs look like amazingly improved. Because all ECC RAM, you don't need that at home, you need that at the business. All this like improved clock speeds just consuming more energy and heat. It doesn't serve me as a home user. In a business, of course I'm going to agree with you. In a business environment, if you do upgrade it with all 10 gigabit, you need faster you need faster CPU, so you could actually take advantage of this 10 gigabit connectivity. Now, if you want to run virtual machines, obviously they're going to run faster than Celeron ones, and things like that. You know, the speed wise, if you want to copy files, you can have these faster speeds. And ECC RAM also, if you run these VMs, it's very crucial to have this auto-correcting memory. So there's less likelihood that your CPU just glitch out and restart on its own. With ECC RAM, the system is more stable, so your VMs are more stable, and web servers and whatever servers you run are more stable. It is a business NAS. It's made for business, not for home. You can forget.
So what we're saying here is, when it comes to the hardware there isn't really a clear winner. It's going to come down to you, the end user, what your particular setup is, I think, or at least with regards to the internal hardware.
Yeah. If you connect to business or connect to home, that's it.
I would argue that in terms of value in 2022, you're getting more for your money on this one with that Ryzen ECC memory and such. I think in terms of value, and actual price and what you're getting in return, the actual, exchanger in the shop putting money on the counter. But I at least have to admit that there are certain setups, particularly multimedia setups and home setups, where the benefits of this system are going to be slightly outweighed by higher TDP or just general utilization 24/7 and having features that they just simply don't need. But thank you for at least acknowledging that there are a market for this device. But you did actually allude to another point that I want to talk about there, and that is connecting to it. And you said those words, 1 GB. Because it's not all about what's inside, that's what they tell me. It's about what's on the outside as well, that's what they tell me. And with these two devices externally, they've got a lot in common, but one very, very big difference. Eddie, would you like to talk to me about the ports and connections on your NAS?
Yeah, I was really fast.
Why don't you show it to the people? You're like, I'm just going to look at it. What?
2 1 gigabit ports. So if you use link aggregation, you can actually get 2 gigabit speeds. 200 megabytes a second. Well, in our home network, it's still good enough because so many people, majority of people still have their Wi-Fi 5 routers, their 1 gigabit connectivity, so they can't actually make use of 10 gigabit connections. So, but those who have...
10, you say?
Yeah, those that have 10 gigabit setup, that they might actually argue this point, but majority won't. 1 to 2 gigabits all they need.
Sorry, carry on. I wasn't listening.
Yeah, that's for business. That's not for business. Maybe video editing, some file transfers.
I think what we're subtly getting at is, yes, this device has got 2 1GBE ports on there. It's also got USB 3.2 Gen 1, so 5 gigabits per second for the 8 or 9 devices that Synology allow you to use on USB. And of course, you've got eSATA for the expansion port there. But the newer generation device, yes, it's got 1GBE on board, but it's also got the option to add 10 gigabit Ethernet. Now, I am just going to save Eddie the trouble of saying what I know he wants to say, which is this is still a 2-bay. It's a 2-bay device that's going to be supporting hard drives and SSDs. This is a 1000 megabits per second upgrade, and that means the odds of you being able to fully saturate a 10 GBE connection on this micro PCIe Gen 3 x 2 adapter are admittedly tougher than that. On a 5-bay like the 1522 or a 4-bay like the 923, you stand a better chance of saturating both read and write. I can see you smiling, wanting to interrupt me. Tough. But there's still no denying that having greater than 1 GBE, you said? 2? Was it 2? Having greater than that as an option down the line is going to be very, very useful. The average, even standard class hard drive these days are arriving with support of over 200 megabytes per second per drive. That already, you're losing a lot of that bandwidth externally, and with ISP routers like the Virgin Hub, the Virgin are cracking out now to normal customers on their standard class plans. Even people that don't have greater than gigabit internet connection speeds are getting routers that have got a 2.5 gigabit Ethernet port and Wi-Fi 6, and therefore there is the potential for domestic users to have greater than 1 GBE speeds. And I think it is borderline criminal to get a system right now in 2022, at the end of 2022, where I cannot exceed network-wise the performance that I can get outside of my home. The idea that I can access my Wi-Fi router at 1200 megabits per second, or even using dual band technology 2400 megabits per second, but I'm restricted to 109 megabytes per second on my NAS, is a real bummer to me. And if I was going to buy a NAS in 2022, I would want the option. It's really annoying they didn't include it. I'll give you that by default. But it's nice to have that option in 2022 that I can add 1000 megabytes per second if I need it. Would you at least acknowledge that you would love to be able to stick 10 GBE on that?
Well, not at home, because sticking this thing into my NAS is not going to improve my Plex connectivity, my Plex performance.
I know, but there are other things in shared utilization.
Even if I have Wi-Fi 6 at home, because no one is really connecting things by wire. They don't connect their laptop. They want to be in the bedroom, they want to be in the living room, they're not connecting their cable. So you can't actually make use of 10 gigabit. And Wi-Fi 6, top speeds you could get is like 1.5, maybe 2 gigabits a second. So if you link aggregate these two, that's all you need. In a business, different environment, different situation. If you're a video editor, you want to connect via 10 gig because it's 2 gigabits a second. That's too slow. And also, that's a good point about drives. Nowadays, new drives come with at least 200 megabytes a second. If you put SSDs like 500, having two 1 gigabit ports is like ridiculous. You think like, oh, I put all this good performing drives in there, and all I'm getting out is like, old USB 2 speed.
Don't you dare suck up to me. Don't you dare try and be nice. Look, I'm going to counter exactly one of the things he said before you in the comments. You heard me, Graham. You heard me, Malcolm. Whoever you are, I know you're going to say it. Yes, if I had this inside this system with 10 GBE and I connect this to my router or via a switch, at the very least I could get 2.5 GBE on a 2.5 GBE router. There are 10 GBE prosumer routers that I can buy from the likes of Netgear and QNAP, and I could have put this inside, and then I could have 3 or 4 connected users on Wi-Fi 6, and all of those users could be getting 1.2 gigabits per second or even greater on dual band connectivity. All of those could be saturated via that single connection to my NAS via that 10 GBE. I do think there is cause, and moving forward, because when you're buying one of these devices right now, you're buying one of these devices with future proofing in mind. You want it to work well for the next 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever years. And yes, right now you can argue that the abundance of Wi-Fi 6 or Wi-Fi 6E or Wi-Fi 7, hello the you in the future, devices in the home are by no means prevalent. Every single current gen mobile phone for the last 2 or 3 generations, Amazon's own Eero, awful named router thing, Google's route, all of these things are Wi-Fi 6. Wi-Fi 6 is creeping in, and the idea that there is a bottleneck in my home between the NAS and the router, the NAS and a switch and a router, I do not enjoy. Yes, I will give you that the idea that this didn't arrive with 2.5 GBE, or that it didn't arrive with this £130 adapter by default and they didn't just increase the price £100, that annoys me. That genuinely does annoy me, because I think that is clear future proofing, and if they just increased the price 100 nicker, they could have released this device with 10 GBE by default and people would have lost their minds in a good way. But the fact that it's not there by default is the only thing I'm prepared to critique there, because I think the fact that the default connections are the same, if not better than that system, for me, put it, and I've already mentioned the M2 NVMEs as well, but for me, the ports and connections on this just put it way outside the boundaries of that one, and the fact that the price tag is going to cost people, because it's a new release versus an old release, I think it's good value. I think it's good that it's got that option on there, and I think that's something that you would have had to admit in 2020 when that arrived, that having 1 GBE did disappoint you a little bit.
Wow, I was asking actually for 10 gigabit ports, so this is as close they can get. I wish they could release the same little adapter for 5 gigabit and 2.5 gigabit. Maybe in the future they'll release those things. So instead of paying $150, you pay $70 for half the speed, which would be fine for me.
Would be nice, yeah. That's actually a fantastic idea. I wish they'd done that. But yeah, maybe it comes down to you and your own network environment. Which one of these sounds more suitable? Because again, it does come down to one of them is going to be easier to buy than the other. And just before we wrap up this video, I think it would be remiss not to talk about software a little bit, because arguably, when it comes to software on both of these devices, there's not a vast amount to distinguish between them, because they're both going to run DSM, the latest version. They're both going to run the exact same applications. But, the virtual machine application, the surveillance application, video station, music station is going to run Synology Photos, it's going to run the backup, hyper backup, it's going to run all of the cloud synchronization and some of that C2 services as well.
Yeah, as long as compatibility doesn't change. If they start introducing Synology drives only for this Ryzen-based system, then you're going to be really annoyed.
No, I don't think they will. The 15.2.2, when the 15.2.2 arrived, it had question marks around its compatibility of third-party drives. But they slowly integrated some drives. There's still not as many drives on the compatibility list as there is on the 720. And the same thing goes for the other one. And something we saw a lot more drive being added, and there was that thing about a little warning in the corner, but luckily that's not happening as much anymore. But when it comes to DSM, I would argue you're not really going to notice the difference if you're a smaller user. It's only when you're pushing the system a little bit more, you may find that the DS723 will be able to run more applications, because it has a, I don't know if I mentioned this, it actually has a lot more power on that CPU, Eddie. So it can really make the most of that. So it depends how much you're going to push that. The same goes to third-party services as well. I think third-party services, for the most part, with the exception of some of the multimedia things you're going to scream in my face after this video, I do think
if you run Dockers, things like that, or virtual machines, yes, I'll give you that. It's going to perform better.
But ultimately, I mean, right now you're a 720 owner. What would it take for you to switch over to this system?
Nothing. No, not at all. I will get another one for a business to keep it in office, but not at home. Definitely, that's not a home NAS. It's not at all. It's business NAS.
Maybe that is what Synology have done here. I mean, me personally, if I was on the fence right now and I was choosing between the 720 and the 723, I would probably opt for the 723, but that's largely based on, I think, it has enough hardware inside to do lots of things. The 720, if you're focusing just on multimedia and particularly server-side processes, so like conversions of HEVC and stuff like that, then yes, the 720 will make a solid choice there. But I think the better memory, the upgradability to 10 GBE, and just that CPU having, when it comes down to traditional NAS services outside of multimedia, I think it is the better choice overall. But what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments. That's what the comments are for, right? If you have enjoyed this video, click like. It really helps us understand what we're doing right and wrong. And more importantly, it means, unlike that dislike button that you can see below that no one uses anymore because YouTube took all the power away from it, we can understand what we're doing right in these videos. Click subscribe if you want to learn more as we cover more and more NASs in 2022 and indeed 2023 and the entire subject of data storage, right? What can they do, Eddie, if they need help with their purchase?
Oh, they can come to blog, write the inquiry there, or go to forum, put question there. So instead of getting just our response, they could get like
the whole
5
community,
different people the answers, so they can decide who is actually telling the truth.
And there are links in the description to all of the reviews that we've done for the different products that we talked about today, and other ones as well, tangentially. But of course, there are links below to where you can get hold of some of the products we talked about today. You don't have to go to those shops. You know, e-shops, the internet's a big place. But if you're going to buy from Amazon anyway, use those links down there because it won't cost you anything extra. We get a little kickback and it helps us do what we do. But apart from that, we will see you next time.